Penn State pushed around Auburn up front. And Carl, you and I know our guy Blake Brockermeyer likes to bring up that Penn State offensive line, not always a strength. Well, Penn State goes into Auburn, gets that massive win, and now James Franklin can claim this win over the Tigers as he helps the Nittany Lions surge towards Big Ten play. Carl, going to you first. What is Penn State's ceiling? Because we talk about Ohio State, we talk about Michigan, we even talk about Michigan State. But when we talk about Penn State in the grand scheme of college football, what's their ceiling this year?
Well, first, let me say this. You mentioned that Blake has talked about Penn State, his concerns about the offensive line. I'm going to tell you something that I've always said, but it's an unpopular statement, but it's the truth. The running back makes the line. The line does not make the running back. And if you want to get better in the run game, there's no quicker way to do it than to go recruit a guy like Nick Singleton, who now completely changes the scope of your football team and your offense. You have a home run hitter who's tough enough to run between the tackles. He's fast enough to run the ball on the perimeter. He's got great vision and great balance. And now all of a sudden, guess what? Penn State's O-line ain't a problem no more because they have arguably one of the top running backs in the country running the ball downhill, so they can really run the rock. Now they look incredible. What does this mean for James Franklin? This means that now every game you play the rest of the year means something. You got Michigan on the schedule, you got Ohio State, you got Michigan State, and it's going to come down to can you beat those guys to win the Big Ten, but you're in position. You having that running back and a great backup running back, now that also opens up things for you in the passing game because now they have to honor your box. And so they have to give you space in the secondary and on the perimeter to be able to throw the ball and do some of those RPO throws. I think the ceiling is very high for Penn State. And if they continue to be successful week after week, and if Singleton continues to play the way that he's playing, they can be big trouble this year in the Big Ten.
I said before the season, just real quick, that I thought Penn State, just on paper, their secondary, the way they play defense potentially this year, and I know you're giving me crap about it, Carl, because you said Manny Diaz, it's still the DC there. He's still going to be calling plays this year, right? But listen, I like the way they match up and can possibly kind of slow down that receiving attack, the passing attack for Ohio State. I think the ceiling for Penn State is a Big Ten championship. I think they can win it this year. For everything Carl just said, plus their pass defense and how they match up against Ohio State. And as you said, Nick Singleton has done everything we've ever believed he was going to do when he got there on campus. Remember, this is the same Penn State squad that couldn't get a single 100-yard rusher all of last season, a record in that program's storied history at RBU. And now Singleton having 140-plus yards in each of these last two games. He keeps doing those, putting up those type of numbers against big-time competition. Maybe he's in New York City at the end of the year.
Whoa. New York City for Nick Singleton?
I know this isn't a Pace Picani commercial. New York City? Yeah. I'm saying Nick Singleton could be there at the end of the year.
Hey, I wasn't expecting him to throw that pitch.
Why not? He rushes for 140, 150 yards every game remaining. And by the way, he could. Put him in the Heisman, man.
I believe going into this game today against Auburn, he was leading the NCAA in yards per carry. I think he was at roughly 10 a clip, which was wild. And then, of course, he does what he did today. Bottom line here, we all have a man crush on Nick Singleton. And this is my personal opinion. He changes the game for Penn State, not just this season, but for the next 3 years, for however long you get him, because now you've got this guy to build your foundation around with Drew Aller, who, again, there's a lot of people still clamoring for him to appear. The Nittany Lions fascinate me, not just in 2022, but for the next 3 to 4 within the context of the Big Ten.
That freshman class, I mean, the pick today as well earlier in the game, that group is going to be salty as hell here in a couple of years.
So speaking of that freshman class, Brandon, Abdul Carter, they give that kid number 11. And if you know anything out there about college football and Penn State, if you wear number 11 at Penn State, you better be a freaking dog. And Abdul Carter showed today he is that guy. He is him. They've got some young guys on that roster who are going to help that program advance to heights that they haven't seen in a very long time. Carl, I'm really fascinated by what James Franklin is putting together. I know a lot of it was kind of the wait and see mode, but it feels like now there's a massive amount of momentum for them over the next 3 to 4.
And he's got the perfect marriage, it seems like, in Manny Diaz as his defensive coordinator. James Franklin is an offensive guy, an offensive-minded guy, and Manny Diaz needed a landing spot, and he had been questionable as a head coach. His defenses, when he came, worked great at the end, but he has really, really picked it up at Penn State, and it seems like this is a perfect marriage between James Franklin and Manny Diaz.
And here's the thing, Manny Diaz, a guy that everybody talks about, loves the blitz. He was getting pressure on the quarterback today with 3 and 4 man going after the quarterback. They didn't really have to do a lot of exotic stuff today.